I suspected my boyfriend was being kept by a rich older woman. After all, he was good-looking enough. And poor enough. And lately, he'd been distant enough with me. But what truly shook me was what I accidentally saw on his phone one night. A woman saved as Sugar Mama had just transferred him $30 in pocket money. I handed his photo to a private investigator, wanting to gather evidence and get back all the money I'd pinched and scraped together to support him for 3 years. But the detective nearly dropped to his knees in front of me. "Please, Miss Morgan, let me off. That guy, no one dares to investigate him. You're listening to the story, My Boyfriend is a Toyboy, on HeartVoice. If you enjoy it, please give me a like and subscribe." On the 10th day of my suspicions about his betrayal, I visited the detective's office. I placed my phone on the desk, sliding it across to the pie sitting opposite. Pressing my lips together, I tried to suppress the tangle of emotions rising in my chest. "These are all the messages between them," I said. "Everything else was probably deleted on a regular basis." The detective took my phone, skimming over the screenshots I'd secretly taken the night before. There weren't many, just one screen's worth of messages. And all of them were from the woman saved as Sugar Mama. Open black lens bracket. Are you done sulking yet? Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. I just sent you $30 for spending money. Is that enough to soothe your poor, wounded heart? Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You have to see me tomorrow. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You heartless thing. Do you not miss me at all? Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. I must have owed you in my last life to be tied to you in this one. Close black lens bracket. The detective finished reading, barely arching an eyebrow as if he'd seen all this 1,000 times before. He didn't bother asking more. "So, Ms. Morgan, what do you need from me?" I forced a faint smile, looking down, unable to stop the bitterness welling up inside. My fingers tightened on the hem of my skirt. "I want you to get hard proof that the two of them are meeting in secret. Preferably the kind of evidence that, if exposed, would ruin them both. He may be dirt poor and have nothing to lose, but that rich lady definitely cares about her reputation. If he wants to climb higher, I respect that. But I want back every dollar I spent supporting him over these 3 years. Only when I've got that money back in my hands can I let myself fall apart and cry it all out." The next picture is his. The detective shot me a surprised glance, a flash of admiration in his eyes. He scrolled through my photos. "Let's see just how handsome this guy is to make a rich woman lose her head." Holy shish. Thud. The phone dropped onto the desk. The pie's face went pale. He leaned back in his chair as if trying to get as far away from me as possible. Eyes wide as if he'd seen a ghost. "Are you crazy? Why are you giving me a picture of him?" I froze, wondering if I'd accidentally picked the wrong photo. But when I looked again, no. It was right. "What's wrong with the photo?" "That's my boyfriend. 3 years ago, he crashed into my electric bike, breaking his leg. After paying his own hospital bills and compensating me, he was left with nothing but his good looks. That accident was how we met, got to know each other, and eventually fell in love. He moved in with me, in a cheap rented apartment. We spent 3 years squeezing together on buses and subways, fighting over sale items at the grocery store to survive. Lately, he'd been constantly using work as an excuse, coming home late, and deliberately avoiding me, always hiding things, texting secretly on Viber, clearly cozying up to some rich woman behind my back. His name was Daniel Ford." "What?" The detective gawked, utterly disbelieving. He stared at me with a strange look in his eyes. "Don't tell me you're delusional, so desperate to marry rich that you're playing some elaborate prank on me?" "That's Daniel Ford, the Ford family's heir, the most notorious playboy in New York. You think he's your boyfriend? He's worth hundreds of millions. There are more women trying to cling to him than you could ever count. Why would he need a sugar mama? Why would he let some rich lady keep him? What are you thinking?" He pushed my phone back to me, with a glance at Daniel's picture still on the screen. His face grew even more uneasy. "Do me a favor, please. We can't afford to look into someone like him. My advice? You should probably get your head checked. I shrugged and gave a self-mocking smile. My teacher didn't teach robbery. But he did teach me one truth. It's better to fill in the wrong answer than to leave it blank. For the past 3 years. Mr. Ford, haven't you done the same? It was clear he never truly cared for me. It was clear he never planned to have a future with me. But just to make his 3 years of poverty more comfortable, he chose to keep stringing me along. This winter is so cold. A broken heart just makes it colder. Guess I'll have to find some new warmth to fill the void Mr. Ford left behind. And seeking fun, well, that costs money, doesn't it? Wouldn't you agree? I lifted my gaze, fighting to keep the emotions inside from spilling out. My nails dug deep into my palm as I looked quietly at Daniel Ford. But then, I realized his expression had turned truly ugly. His eyes were dark and stormy. He looked genuinely angry? Oh, right. Suddenly it dawned on me. Mr. Ford, you still haven't fully gotten back your financial freedom, have you? So, Mrs. Ford? Mrs. Ford arched an eyebrow, glanced at Daniel's face, then smiled gently. Are you sure you want to cut ties with such a good girl? Daniel pressed his lips together, his throat working. For a moment, there was a complicated shadow in his eyes. But in the end, his expression returned to that cold, arrogant indifference. I've already said it. Taking over the company is already my biggest compromise. As for everything else, no amount of practice would help. I can't spend my life stuck with just one person. It's too boring. It's stifling. My heart suddenly ached sharply. My hand clenched tightly, involuntarily. But Mrs. Ford's gentle smile didn't fade. In fact, there was a deeper meaning in her eyes. Oh, is that so? What a shame. With that, she pulled a checkbook from her purse, picked up a pen, and began to write. Well, if you're lacking in ability, you can always keep learning. But in love, you have to take responsibility for your own choices. Do whatever you want. As parents, the only thing I can do. She paused, her pen still. Then, with a subtle smile, she slid the check across to me. Is to round up the $6 million you asked for to an even $10 million. Let's warm up your cold winter a little. $10 million. Honestly, I'm not exaggerating. The moment I held that check in my hand, I really did feel warmer. I don't know what poor people do first when they suddenly come into money. All I did was go quietly to the bank and cash the check. Then I returned to my old apartment and, in total silence, smashed every single thing that ever belonged to Daniel Ford. Finally, I stood in the middle of the wreckage. I looked at the morning sunlight outside the window, then at the balance in my bank account. Without hesitation, I turned and walked away. Back to the most luxurious club in Manhattan. Bring me the strongest liquor, the biggest suite, the softest bed, I said, and the most handsome male escorts you have. I gripped a bottle of whiskey, swirling it in my hand. It was my second time stepping into this high-end club. But this time, I was here as a client. Staring at the long lineup of male models, I exhaled and picked out the 2 best-looking guys. I'll take these 2 for now. Strip and shower, please. The 2 men hesitated, looking awkward. The best-looking one waited a moment, then spoke politely. I'm sorry, Miss Morgan. We're not exactly the kind of service you're looking for. That random, almost comical line made my heart ache. I tilted my head back, swallowed a big mouthful of whiskey, the taste sharp with tears. I stepped closer, poked my finger at his hard chest under the shirt. Why the act? You sell your looks. I pay money, and you're turning me down? If you're that principled, why flirt with me in the first place? He looked stunned. But maybe it wasn't my wild words that threw him off. Maybe it was because I was crying. Tears slipped down, word after word, pouring out unconsciously, until finally, they hit the floor, shattering all the feelings I'd kept inside all day. I hugged my face, and at last, I sobbed. Daniel Ford, you really are a bastard. The next day at noon, I was woken by my phone vibrating. My hangover from last night was still pounding in my skull. Grumbling, I turned over, reached out and patted the person beside me. Daniel, answer the phone. The words died on my lips. I stared blankly at the handsome stranger in front of me, a total stranger. It took me a while to realize I was in bed, held by two men, wedged between them. My awareness slowly returned. Memories surfaced. Me, clinging to two male escorts. Drunk and crying myself numb all night. Just alcohol and tears. I hadn't done anything else. All I'd wanted was to lie on the softest bed, in the warmest, strongest arms I could find, to survive my heartbreak with both pain and relief. That was all. The phone kept vibrating. The guy beside me furrowed his pretty brows, murmured sleepily. I finally snapped to, and answered the call. I only realized how hoarse my voice was when I spoke. Who is this? There was a silence. Then Daniel Ford's cold voice came through the line. You're not home. Where are you? I frowned, instantly awake. I'd deleted Viber but forgot to block his phone number. What do you want, Mr. Ford? He was silent for a moment, his voice lower and more rigid than ever. I'm here to get my stuff. Come back now, immediately. I was stunned. Those worthless things, he was coming back for them himself? I smashed it all. There's nothing left. Go buy new ones, Mr. Ford. If there's nothing else, I'm blocking your number. I'd just received $10 million from his family last night. Promised never to get involved again. But I'd forgotten to block him. That was my mistake. Had to make my stance clear. The call went silent again. Only the static of the phone was left. After a long pause, his low voice sounded again. Steady and cold. He hadn't even finished saying, where are you? Beep. The phone died. A whole night without charging. Of course the battery gave out. Annoyed, I clucked my tongue, instinctively reaching for a charger. But I forgot, this wasn't my home. No outlet by the bed. No charger. Just a strong arm and six-pack abs. My wrist was pulled back and I found myself wrapped in a hard embrace. The male escort I'd accidentally woken up tightened his hold, completely trapping me against his chest. His voice was low, sexy, a little lazy. If you want to touch, just touch a little longer. Don't switch to someone else tonight. Okay? I want to stay with you a little longer. I snuggled into his chest, found a comfortable spot, and laughed quietly. Don't be greedy. Let the other boys at the club have their chance too. In that moment, I suddenly understood Daniel Ford. Turns out, in a relationship where both sides only take what they want, with no intention of a future together, clinging to just one person is really rather dull. But what I hadn't expected. In such a high-end club, there were only 7 truly professional male escorts? At my rate, 2 at a time. 1 change a day. I ran into that best-looking guy again on the 4th day. Our eyes met. I was so embarrassed I wished the floor would open and swallow me whole. He, on the other hand, smiled with gentle amusement, tilting his head. My name's Kevin Reed. It's a pleasure to serve you again. Oh, then do me a favor. I scratched my nose awkwardly. Go downstairs and rent me a power bank. Will you? I forgot my charger. Kevin paused, then couldn't help but lower his head and laugh. Sure thing. The door opened and shut again. I stood by the door, gripping the handle, covering my face. Today would be the last time. Really? Knock, knock. Someone rapped on the door. I froze, instinctively thinking Kevin had forgotten something and went to open it. But standing there was Daniel Ford, his face as dark as a thundercloud. Kevin stood behind him, pale, silently shaking his head at me. All my warning bells went off. I tried to slam the door, but Daniel was faster. He stuck out a leg and blocked it. He glared at me coldly, a mocking laugh grinding out between his teeth. So, are those boys' arms warm enough? Warm enough for you to sleep with 8 men in 4 days? Morgan, are you trying to burn yourself down? His question was so absurd. I just stood there, but Daniel wasn't interested in further explanations. He simply kicked the door open. Standing in the doorway, he stared right into the room at the single remaining guy inside. His eyes were icy, voice dangerously low. Do you need an invitation? Get the hell out. I stood there, stunned. For a second, I felt like when Daniel barked, get out, he meant me too. I frowned slightly. giving Daniel a puzzled look. We already agreed everything between us, money and feelings, would be settled cleanly. Each going our separate way. I took the money, kept my word, and haven't bothered you since. It's you, Mr. Ford, who keeps calling me. What more do you want? And now you even show up here? Daniel paused for a moment. His Adam's apple bobbed, his tone still cold and hard. I came to get my stuff. A lump formed in my throat. I had to take a deep breath before I could speak. Don't you have the keys? I lost them. Lost them? He sure said it with conviction. I closed my eyes, steadied myself, then sighed in resignation. I really did smash everything. If you want, name your price. I'll pay you back. Daniel let out a quiet, oh. His lips curled up in a faint, chilly smile. How much money do you have left? I'll check right now, I blurted, startled by the question. For a split second, I even thought, even 10 million might not be enough. What if I have to pay him even more? Even though, honestly, I couldn't imagine anything in that pile of broken junk being worth recovering. But Daniel Ford obviously wasn't making it up. He and that old rented apartment were things he seemed desperate to cut off for good. Maybe there really was something valuable in there I hadn't realized? Otherwise, why would he care so much? Kevin? As we were leaving, just as we passed by each other, Daniel suddenly paused and turned his gaze on the two male escorts with me. Kevin instinctively parted his lips. No sound, but enough for Daniel to catch on. A look of scrutiny crossed Daniel's face, his mouth curling in a cold smirk. Not bad. That explains why you picked him twice. So you really like that one? Huh? The two-seat sports car, of course. Had no back seat. Daniel sat right next to me, his long fingers drumming lightly on the steering wheel. His tone was casual, his question almost indifferent. I just gazed quietly out the window at the drifting snowflakes, brow furrowed, saying nothing, because honestly, I didn't think we could calmly discuss something like this as two mature adults. At that moment, the car's screen lit up with an incoming call. 3 words blinked on the display. Ethan Brooks. Dan, where are you? Coming out with the guys tonight? Daniel frowned, his voice flat. Busy. Can't. Busy with what? You've been back 4 days and haven't seen the crew once? The car was very quiet, but the call volume was turned up. Daniel glanced at me, pressed his lips together, and then said crisply, "You all go ahead. I'm hanging up." The call was immediately ended. The car fell silent again. Daniel started the engine. I looked down at my own phone. Dead for 3 days now. I could only sigh inwardly. If I'd known, I would have had someone rent a charger for me before leaving earlier. All thanks to you, he suddenly said, voice dripping with sarcasm. I've been back in the States for 4 days and still haven't gotten my old life back. Meanwhile, you're living pretty comfortably, aren't you? Even the money you're using to hire men, that was mine. I stared at him, then suddenly laughed. The compensation Mr. Ford gave me, wasn't it mine to spend however I wanted? No restrictions on what I could use it for, right? If there were restrictions, that's a different price altogether. Daniel's mouth curved into a smile, but there wasn't a hint of humor in his eyes. And what if I wanted to add restrictions? Would that cost extra? My eyes darkened, caught off guard for a moment. So, the whole coming to get my stuff excuse, was that just an excuse to stop me from seeing other men? I wasn't naive enough to think he was jealous or possessive. It was more that sick mindset. If I throw something away, no one else should get to pick it up either. What kind of restrictions? I sneered, my smile turning even colder. Buy out the rest of my life. Forbid me from ever seeing another man? If I'm not mistaken, that kind of deal, if both sides agree, is called a marriage proposal. But if it's not about marriage, isn't it just keeping a mistress? And Mr. Ford, you're definitely not the marriage type. So it's the second, then? What? You're not disgusted by having me as a living reminder of your past anymore? I gave a cold laugh. But Daniel's frown deepened, his voice growing rough. A flicker of frustration crossed his eyes. Even he didn't seem to realize it. It's not about keeping a mistress. My fingers shook with anger. I took a deep breath. Then laughed louder. Oh, so, not marriage, not keeping? Most likely. We'll have nothing to do with each other from now on. If you can't see me, can't touch me, what's the point of trying to control me? The car suddenly swerved, pulling hard to the curb. Daniel's Adam's apple bobbed, his hand clenched into a fist, veins standing out on the back of his hand. But he said nothing. I didn't know whether it was because he had no words left, or because he didn't even understand himself. But honestly, it didn't matter anymore. Sorry, Mr. Ford. You want to buy, but I'm not selling. I yanked open the car door and stepped out into the falling snow, never looking back. But as I walked away, head high, I think a snowflake must have landed in my eye, because my vision blurred, just a little. That tense breakup with Daniel Ford was the final push I needed to make a new move. I quit my teaching job at the calligraphy studio, gave up my career, and left New York for good. Cutting someone off, turns out, isn't that hard. I had money now. I could live wherever I wanted. Blank. Blank. Heard our young Mr. Ford finished his training and came back to take over the company? Real estate in this city might be about to shake up. No way. Compared to his older brother, Daniel Ford is a long shot. Nothing's going to change because of him. Everyone knows, the star of the Ford family was always the oldest. David Ford. Such a shame. Dying young in that accident 3 years ago. And Daniel? That playboy only got the job because he was forced into it. Even 3 more years of training, and he'll still be useless. At a Manhattan real estate office, a few agents were chatting idly about the boss. Those familiar names drifted through my ears. I kept my eyes on the VR house listings, waiting for an agent to bring the keys and show me around in person. Real estate in New York always held its value. Buy one place, rent it out. A little passive income, a nice life. Perfect. My phone buzzed. A new friend request. I accepted by habit. Seeing the other person's profile, a lotus bud, I sent a quick message. Open black lens bracket real estate agent? Tour guide? Travel company? Close black lens bracket? Thanks to big data, everyone friending me lately was in those industries. The reply came back quickly, tinged with a bit of helplessness. Open black lens bracket. All 3 sound decent. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. But if I could choose, I'd rather be a male escort. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. GIF. Awkward lotus flower. Close black lens bracket. I froze. Open black lens bracket. Kevin? Close black lens bracket. He sent back a nod emoji. But the next message made my pupils contract a little. Open black lens bracket. I got blacklisted. Morgan. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Can't stick around in New York anymore. Headed home. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Time for a farewell dinner. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Can't afford a fancy place. Will street food do? Close black lens bracket. Kevin really did get caught up in all of it. Not because Daniel Ford did anything, but because that day Daniel stormed into the club and caused such a scene that everyone found out. And since Kevin was the only one Daniel called out by name, well, that was as good as making an enemy of him. The boss, scared of future trouble, just fired Kevin on the spot. That was that. See? Small fry like us. How could we ever win? I tilted my head back, finished my beer, and looked over at Kevin beside me under the flashing streetlights. I pulled up the train ticket I'd bought long ago, held it out. Hey, handsome. Instead of suffering here, serving rich folks, why not come with me and chase the money somewhere new? Still time to buy a ticket. Kevin leaned back in his chair, smiling his usual lazy, charming grin. He arched a brow and gave me a sidelong glance. Fair warning, lady. All I've got is this pretty face and a silver tongue. But I only sell talent, not my body. I never expected Daniel Ford to call again. Even more surprising, he somehow knew I was about to leave. It was 9 at night. Sleep creeping in. But the voice on the line was no longer cold or distant, it snapped me wide awake. Where are you going with him? I glanced at the unfamiliar number. Brow furrowing. It's none of your business. You just need to know that you'll never have to be bothered by me again. Go on and live your playboy life. Mr. Ford. I raised a hand, ready to hang up, but Daniel seemed to anticipate it. His voice shook, almost frantic. Morgan, don't hang up. Don't go. Don't go with him. I pursed my lips, said nothing, just gently tapped the screen. Pressed red. Hung up. My gaze fell on the car window. Outside, cloaked in darkness. Kevin, wake up. We're almost at our stop. A house in New York cost me over $600. But with the $300 I had left, it was enough to buy my parents a new place back in our hometown. At the same time, Kevin and I pooled funds to rent a 2-story house and open an art training center. My dad just retired this year. He used to teach calligraphy at the city's high school. I've got 5 years' experience teaching in New York. Paperwork isn't an issue. And we have someone here with a silver tongue. Sells art but not himself. This center is going to succeed. I know it. Standing in front of our 2-story building, still being renovated, I raised an eyebrow and clapped Kevin on the shoulder. A surge of confidence welling up in my chest. But Kevin seemed hesitant, lips parting as if he wanted to say something. Eventually, he spoke up. You're really brave. You know that? The day we left New York, I heard Daniel Ford practically tore up the airport and train station looking for you. It was a real mess. I think his dad had to step in to calm things down. You're not worried? I bowed my head, chuckling softly. Worried about what? You talk like he loved me so much. I never thought I was important enough for Daniel Ford to chase after me everywhere. That whole, won't let you go, thing. It's mostly habit after 3 years together. Nothing more. Once he calmed down, he'd go back to his life. No need to hold onto someone just to fill the void of a boring life. But that's not my concern anymore. Kevin turned to look at me. Suspicion in his eyes. Didn't people say Daniel Ford spent the last 3 years studying abroad? How'd you two meet, then? I pouted, subconsciously rubbing my right wrist. A car accident. He was on a motorcycle. Ran right into my electric scooter. He broke his leg. I broke my arm. We were stuck in the hospital together. Got close over time. That whole study abroad story, probably just a cover for the public. Broken bones? Kevin stared at my wrist. Concern all over his face. So, your calligraphy's still okay? TCH. This guy, now that we're business partners, he's not calling me, boss lady, anymore? I shrugged, unconcerned. My body's a bit weak. Not cut out for heavy work. But the future for a rich woman is all about poetry and faraway places. Once this center's up and running, I'll start traveling across the country. No real plan. As for growing the business, leave that to you and my dad. I looked up at the newly hung sign on the 2nd floor. Smiling brightly, deliberately ignoring the look in Kevin's eyes. It's not that I don't get it. I just don't want to. 10 days later, the center opened for business. My dad insisted on lighting firecrackers himself. Kevin and I just let him have his fun, standing outside with the crowd to watch. When are you leaving? Kevin asked, eyes lowered. I shrugged. In 2 days, if everything at school's fine. New journey, new start. Boom. The firecrackers exploded, mingling with my dad's cheerful voice. I reflexively shrank my neck and covered my ears. But then, another pair of hands gently covered mine, blocking out the noise completely. For a moment, everything went quiet. Kevin stood behind me, my heart racing, blood roaring in my ears. And a faint whisper from him. Maybe we could start? I didn't quite catch it. Looked up to ask. And there was Daniel Ford. Across the street, a black Mercedes parked at the corner. He stood there, in a long wool coat, leaning against the car, watching me quietly through the crowd. The hands on my ears dropped immediately. Kevin saw Daniel too. On instinct, he pulled me behind him. I smiled, patting Kevin's arm. Looks like today, you and my dad are in charge of the grand opening. Go on, Mr. Model, new journey begins now. I have to take care of something. I'll be right back. Kevin's eyes flickered, His hand tightened for a moment. But he didn't stop me. He just bit his lip, watching my back as I walked toward Daniel. Regret in his voice. Some things just get started and have to end right away. The driver got out and politely held the door open. I got in the back seat, barely opening my mouth before Daniel's head dropped onto my shoulder. Eyes closed, exhausted. Instinctively, I tried to shove him off. But the next second, Morgan, I'm so tired. I frowned, scooted over to avoid his weight. If you've got something to say, just say it. Why are you here? His head slipped off my shoulder and he let out a bitter laugh. Sitting up and meeting my eyes. Looking for something. I gave a dry chuckle. What now? An excuse. Daniel lowered his gaze, looking hollow. An excuse to find you. To admit my mistakes. Chase after you again. Until you come back. Or, until the day I die. Anything's better than standing in that huge train station, surrounded by strangers, knowing I'd never find you again. A wave of tiredness and confusion washed over me. I really didn't get it anymore. Daniel Ford, are you sick? He coughed, rubbing his temples, his face a bit pale, but his mouth quirked in a self-deprecating smile. Pretending to be poor to fool you? That's character sickness. Couldn't admit I loved you? That's mental illness. I'll own all of it. When we first met, I was a jerk, just out for myself, shameless, no excuses. Otherwise, my dad wouldn't have exiled me to toughen up. But, as for calling you a stain in my life, I never really meant that. At the time, I just didn't want to admit I was putting off coming home because I'd fallen for you. As he spoke, Daniel turned on his phone's screen. It was a picture of two young men. Their features similar. My brother, David Ford. He was the one my parents groomed as their heir for over 20 years. With him holding up the family, Daniel had more freedom to follow his own path. With less pressure, he was basically allowed to do whatever for 20 years. But then David died suddenly. His parents needed a successor, so they pressed Daniel to fall in line. To walk the right path. Where were they before? When I was little, the three of them were always busy with work. I just waited at home for them to come back. Grew up, stopped waiting, didn't blame them. Just felt tired. Tired of caring for someone, only to be let down when they weren't there. And loving you meant putting all my hopes on one person again. Meant letting my parents finally tame me. Make them happy. In plain English, I was afraid of that. I was scared to admit it. He lifted a hand, covering his face. A bitter, self-mocking laugh. First time I tried being tough. You took the money and ran. Hired 2 male models immediately. Second time, I blew up. You thought I wanted to keep you as a mistress. So you just up and left New York with him. The third time, I didn't dare be stubborn anymore. So I rushed here. He broke off, coughing again, lips pale, eyes deep as he stared at me. You ran too fast. I'm scared if I mess this up again, I'll never catch up to you. I pressed my lips together, unable to sort out my feelings. After a long pause, I looked straight at Daniel's dark, complicated eyes. Softly, I said, don't overthink it. Let it go. You stopped catching up to me a long time ago. Whether you've changed or not, it's up to you. Either way, I don't need it. I could accept Daniel Ford's reasons. But the consequences? Those aren't my responsibility. I'll never understand why turning back from your mistakes is supposed to be worth its weight in gold. I only know honesty and loyalty are the foundation of any equal relationship. No decent man deserves a medal just for being faithful and telling the truth. Excuses don't matter. The moment Daniel chose to deceive me, what we had was already doomed. How far can you walk forward when you start with a lie? Hello, Daniel Ford, youngest son of the Ford family in New York. Heir to a fortune. Mind if we start over? Just because Daniel showed up, I moved up my travel plans by a day. But when I sat down in my first-class airplane seat, turned my head, and saw that all too familiar face, everything went dark. Daniel, didn't I make myself clear enough yesterday? Daniel's mouth pulled down, and he quietly withdrew his hand. Head lowered, he mumbled, Kevin's got Viber. I don't. If I don't stick close, He's got you lined up already. His voice was soft, but I caught the name, Kevin. And suddenly, the image of that hug in the airport lobby flashed through my mind. Remember to check in safe. Let me know where you land. Kevin had said. If I'm around, I'll come find you. Sinking into the plush seat, I ignored Daniel. With a moment before airplane mode, I texted Kevin and Dad. Open black lens bracket boarded the plane. Close black lens bracket. I realized Daniel wasn't totally stalking me. Most of the time, he was working from the hotel. Not causing much trouble. How long are you staying here? Morgan? Have you picked your next stop? At the hotel restaurant. Daniel sat across from me. Lips tight, eyes serious. I've got a big negotiation back home. If I don't make it in time, I'll just go straight to your next city. I paused, cutting my steak, the meat melting in my mouth. So much easier to swallow than Daniel Ford. 4 more days here. Next stop, Boston. I replied flatly. He nodded, a glint of hope in his eyes. 4 days is enough for me to get back. Didn't matter. Because in 2 days, I was actually heading to Chicago. If he couldn't take my hints, I'd just have to lose him my own way. And honestly, tricking someone? It was actually kind of fun. Oops. Did I say that out loud? Couldn't shake him off. Because, 7 days later, on the flight from Hangzhou to Jiangsu, Daniel Ford showed up in the seat right next to me again. He looked even paler than before, coughed softly a few times, and forced a strained smile. It's fine. I deserve this. As long as I can find you, anything's worth it. My hands clenched into fists. The calm I'd held onto suddenly crumbled. I took a deep breath. My voice harsh. Daniel, is the phrase, "don't cling to me," really that hard to understand? Didn't you say you didn't want to spend your life with just one person? Then go live your colorful life and stop bothering me, okay? Daniel froze for a second. His fingers curling, voice dropping even lower. I don't want to cling. I just want to be near you. I don't have your Viber. You don't pick up unknown numbers. This is the only way left for me. I just want, if you ever look back, I'll be the first person you see. I glared at him coldly, voice icy. But here's the thing. I don't want to see you. I'm tired of looking at the same face every day. Got it? Daniel's eyes flickered with a loss so raw even he didn't know what to do. He lowered his gaze, nodded slightly. Okay, then I'll follow you in secret. I won't let you see me. As long as you know I'm still here. That's enough. A surge of anger burned inside me. My voice rising. Daniel Ford, don't you have any shame? This whole self-deception thing, is that your idea of a solution? Daniel looked at me, dark eyes glistening. He gave a bitter, helpless laugh. I got myself into this mess just to save face. Now I'm about to lose my wife. Who needs pride anymore? I clenched my fists tighter. I was wrong. He looked up, the apology slipping out as smooth as water. But it was obvious he had no intention of changing. I can't lose track of you again. Morgan. The hand I was raising to put on my headphones suddenly froze. Still, I turned away and shoved the earbuds in. I closed my eyes. I didn't know how Daniel did it. But for the next 3 months, he really didn't show up in front of me. Only when he had to return to New York for work would he ask me where my next stop was. Every time, I lied. Every time, he believed me. But he still asked. Guess he's afraid not to. Huh? Kevin lounged on my sofa, chewing on a kebab and laughing wryly. The art center was being renovated, so we had a break. He took the next flight to the city where I was traveling, showed up at dawn. Food all ordered in. I found something out. Didn't really want to say. But, Kevin paused, looked down and sighed. It'd be wrong not to tell you. The beer can in his hand was squeezed nearly flat. Kevin laughed bitterly. That whole time, from when we left New York to the opening of the center. The reason Daniel Ford didn't chase after you? It's because he knelt outside his father's office for 4 days straight, admitted defeat. He agreed to every single condition his dad set. Just for one thing. Don't stop him from chasing you. That's all he wanted. I instantly remembered Daniel's pale face. And that never-ending cough. Maybe It was just working too hard. Not sleeping. Burning himself out. The room fell silent for a few minutes. Kevin didn't say anything else. I pressed my lips together, gathering the trash from the coffee table. I'm going to take this out. You should go back to your room. There was a trash can in the apartment. But I just didn't want to hear any more. Kevin understood. So he let me go. I never expected that the moment I opened the stairwell door, someone would collapse right at my feet. The sudden figure startled me. I let out a short scream. Then stared, stunned. Daniel? He was sitting on the floor, looking incredibly awkward. His right wrist tied to the door handle with a cord, like he'd been there all night. The second he saw me, he yanked his hand free and scrambled to his feet. I didn't mean to. What are you doing here? His arms still showed the marks of the cord. Sitting slumped on the stairs, eyes dazed from lack of sleep. I just couldn't wrap my head around this scene. I didn't know how long you'd stay, or when your flight would be. If I slept in a room, I wouldn't hear you leave. So I tied my arm up, so I'd sleep lighter. If anyone took the elevator, I'd wake up. He tugged down the sleeve of his black hoodie, but I'd already seen the angry red marks on his wrist. Daniel Ford, you really are sick. I threw the trash hard into the bin, took a deep breath, stared at him in disappointment, then turned to leave. But Daniel grabbed my hand suddenly. His voice panicked. I'm not, just. He trailed off. At last, he let out a long, helpless sigh. He dropped his head, apologized again. Don't be mad. I'll be more careful next time. I won't let you see me anymore. I closed my eyes, took a long, steadying breath, then yanked my hand free. If you want to kill yourself with this, go do it somewhere far from me. Just don't die next to me. Kevin stayed with me for 5 days. Maybe the things I'd said that night finally worked. Daniel didn't show up again. But as always, every 5 days, he'd have to return to New York for work. Then he'd come find me, ask my next destination. Now, no more questions. Guess he'd left. Fine by me. Even if he asked, I'd only lie to him again anyway. He's in the hospital. On the cab ride to the airport, Kevin glanced at me for a long time, then suddenly spoke. I froze. What? He pushed himself past the limit, collapsed in the stairwell. I was the one who took him to the hospital. Kevin sighed, patting my shoulder, sounding lighter. Go see him. See what's in his coat pocket. I give up. With a personality like his, no normal person can beat him. Trust me. Go see him. You won't regret it. Daniel Ford was hospitalized from exhaustion. Constantly on the move, severely sleep-deprived. He sat on the hospital bed, pale lips, calmly hooked up to an IV, still holding his laptop, face serious in an online meeting. But the moment he saw me, all that cold, distant facade melted away. His eyes lit up. Morgan? On the other end of the call, a woman laughed, teasing. Wow. The jerk comes back to life when he sees the light. Daniel clicked his tongue, shut the laptop, turned to me. Why are you here? I didn't answer. Just quietly walked over to the coat rack, reached into the pocket of his down jacket. Daniel's face changed, but he didn't stop me. Just sat quietly, watching. Finally, I found a square folded piece of paper in his inside pocket. Just one glance at the first line. I sucked in a cold breath. A will? Open black lens bracket. I, Daniel Ford, hereby leave all my assets, including movable and immovable property, unconditionally to Miss Morgan. This shall take effect upon my death. Close black lens bracket. My fingers shook. Breathing grew difficult. You're not afraid your parents will have a heart attack? They know. Daniel smiled faintly, as if nothing had happened. So you don't have to worry about me dying next to you. I already made a will. Just, could I beg you, this time, to slow down a little? I can't quite keep up right now. He's got a real problem. Daniel Ford, you are really sick. What normal person would do this? I threw the will hard onto the hospital bed and turned to leave. Daniel panicked, voice shaking. Morgan, where are you headed next? My footsteps halted abruptly. My fingers trembled, but I didn't look back. His voice was low, full of despair. Even if you lie to me, That's fine. I spun around, stormed back to the bed, and slapped him hard. In my 20-something years on Earth, it was the first time I'd cursed at someone. Idiot. Daniel's face snapped sideways from the slap. But he bit his lip, and smiled. So, where to next? My chest heaved, breath ragged, 5 times in and out. I shut my eyes, gritted my teeth. Boston. Daniel hesitated. You already used that one to trick me. Try somewhere else. I couldn't be bothered. I turned and left. If I stayed 1 second longer, I'd start cursing again. Believe it or not. Up to you. The hospital room was quiet for a few seconds. Then, a voice full of joy, tinged with tears, rang out. I believe you. I do.